the coach's coach. He takes as much time and energy in coaching, not only working with his members, but he does the same with his staff, and I appreciate that. And I always enjoy talking with Jeff, even if it's just a casual conversation, because I always walk away feeling like I have learned something again. And so now it's your opportunity to learn something, because I can tell you that I've already heard this presentation and it's very good. So not putting pressure on you or anything, right? Set the expectations too high. But anyway, please welcome Jeff Chandley.
And again, thanks for everybody staying around after lunch and being a part of it. A little quick history. I didn't get into this business to be a tennis pro. Back growing up, I was a football player and decided that after being injured several times, I'd start playing tennis my senior year of high school. Played junior college, 2 years, was able to talk my way onto the team, went to a small school in Nashville, Nazarene College in Nashville, and decided that I needed to figure out what I was going to do after school. Luckily, a pro in town picked me up and said, "You want to learn the game?" And I learned from him the teaching side of it, but I had no idea what the business side was about it. So I'm bringing 30 years of sitting in members' offices, talking to them about the business side, sitting with CFOs and trying to understand the budget side. So this kind of presentation that Pat's put on is needed for not just the director's level, but for every level of pro that's coming through, because I find out now that the early on pros, the new pros coming into the business, they don't want to know about the budget so much. They don't want to know about the court maintenance, how a court's built. They just want to teach, pretty much eat what they kill on the court, and that's it. So to have a presentation a day full of these types of speakers is really important. But we need to keep trying to get this out to the younger generation. Last story, real quick, before I get started with my presentation. Took over a club, pro had been there for 20 years, was being groomed, I thought, to be the next director of tennis, and they ended up hiring me at this club. The first staff meeting we sat in, as I do with all my staff meetings and all the clubs I've been at, I passed out the financials for that month. And the whole staff just stared at him. And I'm like, what's wrong? What did I mess up? Is it the wrong month? And they go, we've never seen this before. 20 years of being there, being groomed for the director, and they had never seen a financial statement and where we were. It was quite interesting. So share those things with your pros coming up. Learning how to manage your tennis committees or your events committees. How many of you have tennis committees right now? Please raise your hand. How about an event committee? Okay. So if you have any type of committee, this hopefully will help you out. Again, the purpose of this, we primarily look at the importance of those committees, whether it's a tennis committee, an event committee, or just a focus group that you might have at your club. I learned, again, my first director's job, I had no idea how to run a meeting. I didn't have any idea how to run a committee, and luckily I had some businessmen that were on the committee that we had for what back then was when a cigarette company could run a pro women's event. It was a Virginia Slims of Nashville, $150,000 event. And I luckily had some gentlemen that were running big businesses that taught me how to run these committees, and I've kind of taken that through the years from there. So the real question is, the committees that you run, are they an angel on your shoulder or a monkey on your back? So you can take it two ways, and it's always interesting to try to see how that committee is going to be formed and what it's going to actually do and what the purpose of those committees are. And again, like everybody, if you want me to email this presentation to you, I'll be happy to at the end of the day or sometime this week. So the presentation, the outline is going to be what's the committee purpose, the structure, the role of the director, the head professional, the role of the chairperson, depending upon how you have it structured again, then the role of the committee, the efficient meetings, subcommittees, and the best practices that you may be able to come back and talk to me about and share with the group. So what's the committee purpose? We always use them as a mini focus group. It's a sounding board. It's a communication to and from the membership that we have, or to promote the event. They need to be team players, people that you can pick that you know that are going to be bought into what you're trying to do as a department or do as an event, to be spectacular. They're going to be ambassadors, there you go. And they're also going to be worker bees. How many members are on a committee? That depends on what you're trying to do. I have a form or a program that we use to run the National 40s back at the landings, which I don't know if any of you remember that are old enough. The National 40s was one of the best national events in the country for a long time. And I had 100 volunteers, and you can imagine having something that big that, oh, sorry, my phone keeps going off.
Everybody loves him. He's the best.
Yeah, well, it's not everybody, but anyway, thank you. Thank you. If you're going to, yeah, we always live off a third I love you, a third hate you, and a third don't care. But anyway, so we use this National 40s, and that's been my structure for committees moving forward. And every committee had a position on the committee, had a job description, had a purpose, and had a mission, and had what they were reporting back to. But we have required numbers. On the tennis committee currently right now, we have to have 8 members, 2 board members. One's a chair, one's a co-chair. That's how we run our committees moving forward. You can have up to 9, but we currently have 8. Who are they? They're active tennis players. Again, they're association presidents, captains of the teams. They're our biggest committees and focus groups, of course. And then you need to have people that are expert in the needed field. If I have a committee like we did when I was over athletics at the club, that renovate the pool, I want to make sure I have a construction manager, a facility manager, and somebody that was knowledgeable in pools and aquatics. I can manage, but I'm not necessarily into the building of the pools, and so we had that on staff and utilized the membership that we had. How long are the terms for our committee? 3 of them are on for a year, 3 of them are on for 2 years, 3 of them are on for 3. You're just always rotating them off to give the continuity to those long-term committees. And then we have an organizational chart. What are they doing? What are they? Who's in charge? What are their purposes moving forward? Role of the director. That's my job. The spotlight's no longer on me. It's all on the membership. We need to make sure we keep that. I'm the authority to tennis. Nobody else has more expertise in tennis than myself on the committee because they're members and they're enjoying the game and they're part of it, but I'm supposed to be the authority. I'm an advisor. I'm the long-term employee. We'll keep the culture of what we've been doing for the department or the event. That's a lot of times, if your event's just annually, your committee is going to roll over, your chairperson is going to roll over, but if you're the one that's always there, I'm the keeper of the culture. Again, I'm the salesperson moving forward that we can sell the idea of getting the support for the event or rebuilding the hard courts. I'm the manager. I do set all the agendas for our committee meetings because I'm going to be the point person to stay in control of that. And then I set the annual agenda also. But I'm always communicating with the chairman, and I'm always putting them first and thinking, even though I set a lot of eyes in there, they're the ones that always feel like it's their idea and they're bought into it. Any question on that? Oh, let me go back to that, David.
Jeff, how often do you meet?
We meet, luckily now, we meet every other month. Retirement communities like the Landings or Sawgrass, you met every month and you had 2 meetings to get ready for that one meeting. So,
Do you pick the committee or does the president and the chair?
well, we give our suggestions, you know what I mean? And we can call out people that we just sent it out, an email out to the membership who wants to volunteer. A big list will come in. We get into a room and we talk about who we think would be good and who wouldn't. That would get presented to the chairman. I've been surprised by a chairman a couple times, and why is this person on the committee? It's just, so you have to be careful, but 90% of the time I pick. How about you?
A little bit of both.
Yeah. I think that works in our business. The role of the chairperson, one, their job is to set the clear expectations for the committee. They're the ground rules. They're the ones that will keep the rules moving. advocate for the program. I have had one tennis, in the 11 years at the club, I've had one tennis player as a chairman or on the board in all 11 years. And all my tennis members are always talking about, my tennis players, why don't we get a chairperson on the board, or a tennis player on the board? But, and I always say to them every time, everybody that's on the board of governors at the club has sat in my meetings as either a chair or co-chair. They know what we go through. They've bought into our program, and they understand. So I have a ton of support on the board side. So I don't ever worry about that. They're confident in the knowledge and the plan that we set forward at the very first of the year. Reports to the board, reporter to the board. So they go back to the board meeting and they report to us. We have our minutes in their packet, but anything that needs to come up, they report back to the board. They're negotiators for me when they go to the board, and whether they're trying to get money for me, okay a program, you know, those types of things. They're the negotiators and the salesperson, and also the facilitator. Role of the committee, they're the eyes and the ears of the membership. I already said that a little bit earlier. They represent all demographics. I think somebody, Beth, it was you, everybody's treated the same at the club. Doesn't matter what level, what gender, how much money they spend, and I can find all the money stuff out. Everybody's treated the same no matter what level of player they are, gender, or how much money they spend. And that's one of the things that we make sure that when we set up a board, I'm covering all the levels in the ladies programs, all the levels in the men's program, just to make sure there's representation, because that's the key thing that we want in these committees. They need to make sure they're ambassadors for the program. There's a lot of things that come up into the committee that we have to vote on and disagree on, just like in every committee. But they know when they walk out of that committee meeting and go to the membership, it's a unified group. And I'm really proud to say that over the years there that anytime we had tough decisions that we had to make, and they're usually not that tough a decision, but anytime, and there was disagreement in the room of the committee, but when they walked out, they knew that they were representing the committee and the club and the staff, and so they were all unified in that situation. What not to look for: agenda-oriented, tunnel vision, dominant, and know-it-all. I have two quick stories that may be on this slide. No. Two quick stories. One was, a committee member, what am I looking for? She said, it's time for me to volunteer for a committee, but I don't have to do anything, right? Well, you can imagine how quickly she got checked off, because that was her response to me. The other one was that got on the committee, and that person came up and goes, so do I get to help you spend money? Because I know what I want to buy. We should be buying. And I was like, no, wrong person. We hired the wrong person, or got on the committee the wrong person. Efficient meetings. You already heard a little bit earlier purpose statement. We got to be prepared. I send out a reminder before every committee meeting. I send out a reminder that we have a committee meeting in 2 weeks. I'm putting the agenda together. Do you want to add something to the agenda? That's to all the committee members. 9 times out of 10, I don't get anything back. Once I build the agenda from there, which I go through the last meetings, go through the things that I need to talk about, I send it to my chairperson. Is there anything you want to add to this agenda? And usually it's no, and then it gets sent out with the agenda and the last month's minutes. And then at the meeting, we'll talk about the staff. Sadia and all my staff will send out their staff report. It's put in a form and given to the committee also. So Sadia's over my junior program. She does a written report on the junior program. Carmen does one on the ladies program. Jeff Stack does one on the men's program. That's all put into the packet. I used to have all the tennis pros there at the meetings because I got my chairman and the general manager to come in on Monday nights when we were closed. It was 6 times a year. It was great training for the pros to sit into a committee meeting and learn how to to run a meeting or be a part of a meeting and be accountable for what they do. My last GM didn't want to come in on Monday, so we ended up going to Wednesday nights, which most of the pros couldn't come in, so now we're doing written reports again. We have to have a desired outcome. We always recap, we review what was said, who was assigned to do what, and then we have the follow-up from there. I'm blessed that I record all of our meetings, and then it's given to my administrative assistant. She does the minutes, and then it gets approved by myself and the chairman before it goes out to the board. So we always have the old business and new business to follow up on. And you always see these 9-hour meetings. There's nothing worse than my first year at the Athletic Club, 2-hour meeting constantly. My chairman loved golf. The first hour we talked about golf because they always gave a report. And then luckily my chairman's from then on, I had to talk about, we don't talk about golf unless it's something really important in the tennis committee meeting, and move on. So now the meetings can be 45 minutes to an hour long, max. Okay, subcommittees are the most important part of what we do. I think that's where the rubber meets the road. It's so important that what they want to do and what they want to get accomplished comes out of the subcommittee and is driven. You got to give them a role. You got to give them a purpose and something to do. You can't just let them come to the meeting and sit in there. You got to clearly define the role and understand that these are the steps you're going to get as you're moving through to get through that role. Set the time frame. We always have deadlines, 10 days out, 20 days out, 30 days out of what needs to be accomplished. And again, the forms that I have from the National 40s dictate that a year out, 9 months out, 6 months out, 3 months out, and moving forward from that everybody. You got to give them the support that they need. You got to listen to their thoughts and ideas. Nothing I've done was really created by myself. It's all been listening to other people and understanding them and gathering their information and putting it together. Because they've got a lot more ideas than I do to run a good event or run a good program. We always follow up. We report the accomplishments to the committee, and you always want to give that subcommittee credit. You lose them quickly, and you'll see that the people that get the recognition that they really need will be the subcommittee every year moving forward. Or they'll be the leaders of that subcommittee and the importance of what they do each year. Who and what to avoid? I already said a little bit of this. Agenda-oriented members veers off the agenda. There's nothing worse than having the person on the committee that starts driving the conversation off toward golf or something else. I'll use that because that one comes up a lot. Not understanding their role. The yes, I would love to volunteer, but you heard me talk about the person that wanted to volunteer, but they don't need to do anything, do they really? Do you have too much time on your hands? Again, at the Landings Club, and again, you know this, that they had a lot of time on their hands. And the 10 years I was there, we talked about 90% of my time was sitting in meetings, to get ready for a meeting, to get ready for another meeting. It was just, they had way too much time on their hands. We got a lot of great things done. My job was never really on the court. It was spending time with the meetings. And again, by doing that, though, I had a successful career at the Landings. What if your chairperson is not a tennis player? We had a little bit of discussion about that. That's okay. As long as they're relaying and understanding what you're doing in your department, that's a great thing. And those that feel empowered. Can I write checks for your department? No. No, it just does not happen. My successful, and this will be a quick presentation to catch us up a little bit, but my success in committees have been the Virginia Slims of Nashville. Sawgrass, my tennis committee's there, National 40s, which I spoke about, standards and audits. Some of you have heard my presentation on the business planning and standards and audits. We talked about capital expenses a little bit earlier with Chuck. This has been the #1 program for me moving forward to get any money spent at my club for tennis. And it is a audit that the tennis committee does every quarter, and my staff does it on the other quarters. They go out and they audit the courts. And we have a pass-fail. They'll go through it and every standard. It can be net height, holes in the net, court surface, clay, what time of the day you were doing it. But the Standards and Audit Committee at the landings is where I started this. It took us a year to agree upon the standards. But it's turned out to be one of the most important documents that I've put together and processes, because those standards and those audits, go to the committee, and then it goes to the board as a report, and they see the things that we accomplished or that we can't do to a court to prepare it, to get it right, to fix it, whatever you want to call it. And once they see that coming up over and over again, the board gets really antsy about, we need to get this off the table, need to give him the money to fix it. We just rebuilt 5 hard courts at the club from the ground up, and it's all because of the Standards and Audit Committee. State senior championships that we held at the landings, the expansion of the fitness facility at the landings, which was $5 million. My SWOT analysis committee, which is always important. How many of you do SWOT analysis? Yeah. Think about that and research it. That's really important. We're getting ready to do our last SWOT analysis at the last tennis committee meeting coming up in March, where the tennis staff and the tennis committee will do a SWOT analysis on the programs, and that's going to lead into my budgeting and my programs and my goals for 2019 and 20, and for the next committee to use as their guiding post. PGA Championship we held at the club. That was a massive committee. Exhibition, the Sampras Bryan Brothers, and the Aquatic Center expansion at the AAC. So I'd love to know some of your best practices for your committees that we could talk out a little bit, or have any questions for me coming forward with how to handle committees. How do you handle your committees? What are the things?
Jeff, have you ever had to dismiss a committee member, or have other committee members revolt over a certain committee member?
I have had a committee member that was dismissed by the chairman, just because of the negativity. And I've been in some volatile, again, it's, take over a club, sometimes it can be volatile, where they had secret committee meetings and things like that. But yes, I have had one, and the chairman took care of it, and luckily it didn't fester out through the whole membership from there. I think people knew that person may have been an issue anyway. Yeah. Anything else?
You all have a ladies' committee in your club?
Do we have the ladies'
Ladies'
committee?
committee that-
When I took over here at the club, I had the Ladies Tennis Association.
Okay.
And what I really kind of found out is that it was too powerful, that it was also developed because I think the pros were not doing some of the things they should have been doing, so this committee was formed. And by the time when I got there and started rolling in and doing some of their work, it became not a need for that. So, we took over sending flowers to people that were sick. We took over running the ladies' member guest. All of those things that you didn't have these bylaws for this ladies' tennis association. And now we have, small committees and focus groups, but not the LTA anymore.
Jeff, do you have sort of a plan over, kind of like some budget, rolling budget over 2 or 3 years, so that, and even though you're only changing a third of your committee, so you don't get big swings of focus or...
Yeah, and that's my job and our GM's job, is to keep it moving in a straight line. We have an orientation at the very first, and tennis always gets the new rookie. You either get the new rookie board member, or you get the guy they're putting out the pasture. So I've got the guy they're putting out the pasture right now. And they gave him the co-chair, the rookie. You know, so now I've got the guy going to retire, and I've got the rookie coming in, and it's, my chairman is kind of checked out and goes, Brad, you got this in the email, I copy the co-chair on. You know, and he's like, Brad. So my job, and I have a notebook that they can read if they want, what the history and all the minutes for the past year have been, and you'll have half of them that take it up. But I think the last time I did this was down in Palm Springs, and I asked, one person asked me, they had a committee meeting with the membership before he got to go in. And then the membership left, so I guess they gave their complaints or their compliments to him, and then he had to go in and run the meeting. And he said, have you ever dealt anything like that? I was like, never. He goes, what would you do? I'd go, I'd probably get a suitcase and pack my bags, because that wouldn't have been a good, you could tell that he was getting hammered before the committee meeting, and then he had to go in and defend himself instead of being in there with those people that were, it was an open meeting before he could go in. Anything else that, yeah.
So, how much do you get them involved, and what's their specific role with capital projects?
What's their specific role? Their specific role with, well, first is the standard and audit. So they get a huge buy-in. I cannot tell you the reason that I got $325,000 this year to build those 5 hard courts again is because for 2 years the committee walked those courts and saw the issues. I'm separate from the main club. I have to go in and present my board, my finance or my budget for the next year to the finance committee and the board. Those guys never come over to tennis. So every time before I give my presentation to the board and finance committee, I give them all a map of where the tennis department is. And they always laugh. I've done it for 11 years. I'm like, here's a map of how you get out past the pool, and the tennis is over there, because you're never going to get them to see it. I can preach it. I can send them pictures. But those audits mean a lot. So that's the first thing. And then we talk about from the audits, what's the priority list? And then, of course, money comes up. But so they're always involved a little bit. But I have the life cycle plan that I keep up, and you know, it's a plan that is 10 years out, just like Chuck was talking about. So there's no surprise.
Do you have a strategy that prevents committees from hashing out subcommittee work in the committee meeting, thus dragging the committee meetings out?
Yeah, well, do I have a strategy? It's, you know, you all need to handle that in the subcommittee. Yeah, you can. That wasn't handled, well, then why don't you have another meeting, and then when you come back,
Pull the trigger.
Yeah, because you can tell when it's going to derail pretty quickly, and you hope, you know, before it gets too far into it, and then it's this. You need to take that to the subcommittee and get it worked out, and then come back with what they think they're going to do. And that was my job, pretty much at the landings, was to keep everybody focused on what the goal was.
Well, and I think the challenge becomes you're doing that to a member, you know, and you're kind of delicately calling them out. And sometimes there's not a way to be delicate.
No, and that's where hopefully you have the respect of the committee. You know, you may have to afterwards. We have a lot of side meetings after the meeting, out in the parking lot, or as I'm trying to walk to my car to sell somebody on why I said that, and it usually turns okay. But everybody's pretty good about that. Jimbo?
How do you politely tell a member in a meeting that they're going off tangent, or stop them from going off tangent, get back on track?
You know, I can hit my chairman's foot with my foot, and that will usually go, it's time for this to get rolling if I'm not going to step in. But there's a number of times that I've kicked my chairman, because he can get into it too. You know, I've been there since 7:30 in the morning, and it's now 8 o'clock at night, and I know this meeting is rolling on. But he can stop it, or she can. My committee is pretty good about going, well, that's another issue. Let's talk about it later or offline. You know. Anything else on committee? If you don't believe in committees, I know people sometimes they're scared to death of committees, especially the tennis committees or event committees are important. I'm a firm believer that I can only do so much work on my own or my staff. And if you have the right people that are on a committee, it's a powerful thing. We talked about the cell phone being powerful. A committee can be huge, and my success over my career is not because of me. It's because I've been lucky enough to have really solid committees and been able to drive them and direct them in the right way. And so it really works out well that way. So, anything else before I turn it over to Mark? That was a statement of we need to bring young pros in to the game. Thank you very much.